You mentioned all the offensive personnel coming back. Well, I guess my next um, comment would go the direction of the often used, well, if your position unit, fill in the blank, wasn't that good last year and everybody's coming back, is that really a good thing?
That's an excellent point. And I think this gets back to how USC's offensive line performed in 2021. And, it was a rough ride. No one disputes that. But in November, this was a noticeably better offensive line than what USC had in September and October. And so, it was a very tricky situation because, as you know, Tim Drevno was the offensive line coach in 2020 under Clay Helton. He got fired because USC needed an air raid specific offensive line coach to teach blocking within that system, within Graham Harrell's specific offensive framework. So Clay Helton went out and got Clay McGuire, who had worked under Mike Leach at Washington State. And so though USC had a terrible season, Clay McGuire was working within a weird situation where this was going to be his only year at USC. Like, he knew that he had to do an absolutely amazing job if he had any hope of staying at USC. It was really always likely that Clay Helton was going to get fired after 2021 or at some point in 2021. So, like, Clay McGuire was working within a very narrow time window. And frankly, he's never going to get the credit for it because he had to leave with the rest of Helton's staff. There was always going to be this house cleaning as soon as USC lost in week 2 and Helton got fired. So you knew that Clay McGuire wasn't going to stick around, but he had to coach this offensive line throughout 2021, and he made progress. And the game that everyone will point to as proof of that progress, you look at the BYU game. That was a game in which USC was in it until the end, and USC, instead of flinging the ball around the yard, remember, there was no Drake London in November. He got injured on October 30th of last season. USC pounded the rock in that game. That was as close to student body right as we've seen at USC in some time. And USC very nearly beat BYU. BYU needed a very late touchdown to win that game narrowly in the Coliseum. It was USC's best performance of the season when you consider the opposition. Like, you don't get too many points for crushing Colorado. Really, the narrow loss to BYU was the best performance by this team. And so Clay McGuire, the offensive line coach last year, he did bring along this line. So I don't think that these starters, Voorhees, Nealon, Cortland Ford, Dedich, they're not a bunch of scrubs. I would say that they're not like the elite of the elite, but they're not bad. And that in many ways gets to where USC is as a team and a program this season, that the line play just needs to be solid. Like, I don't think anyone expects the line play to be spectacular. Like, I don't think anyone expects to see the 1995 Dallas Cowboys offensive line here. All right. It's just be reasonably competent so that you don't have too many busts, too many negative plays, doing enough that Caleb Williams can function at a reasonably high level. He will be able to save a number of plays in which the offensive line doesn't play well, but, basically play good defensive lines to a draw. Just don't get blown up. Don't get embarrassed. Hold your own. It doesn't mean you're going to dominate, but if you can just avoid the avalanche of negative plays, if you avoid constant pressure on Caleb Williams, then USC has the skill position talent to do what it needs to do on offense and win games. I think that is the general expectation, that if USC can have a B- offensive line this year, like in the future, it will be expected to be an A- or straight A. But in this season, B-, maybe even a B, that would be good enough. And I think while Josh Henson, the offensive line coach, and Lincoln Riley himself would say, hey, we hold ourselves to the highest standards at USC. Privately, inwardly, I would say they'd take like a B- or straight B grade from their offensive line in this one season, because they know they're fighting an uphill battle given the bare cupboard that Clay Helton left to them.